Today, we are profiling the most dangerous, the most unpredictable, and undeniably the most fascinating man in South African politics. He is a man who went from holding up banks with loaded firearms to holding the keys to the highest offices in the nation. He is a billionaire businessman. He is the kingmaker of coalitions. He is the Minister of Sports, Arts, and Culture. And according to his fiercest critics, he is a man whose past has never truly left him. This is the story of Gayton McKenzie. Is he the ultimate story of human redemption, or is he simply a master illusionist operating on the grandest stage of them all? To understand the empire of Gayton McKenzie, you have to rewind the clock. You cannot look at the man in the tailored suit sitting in the Government of National Unity today without first looking at the man in the orange overall. Gayton McKenzie was not born into wealth. He was not groomed in the private schools of the political elite. He was forged in the unforgiving fires of the streets. In his early 20s, while other men his age were studying at university or entering the corporate world, Gayton was orchestrating high-stakes armed robberies. He was a bank robber. He was violent. He was tactical, and he was completely at war with the system. But the system always fights back. His reign of terror was cut short, and he was captured, convicted, and sentenced to serve time in the belly of the beast. For 8 long years, Gayton McKenzie was locked away in maximum security. In South Africa, prison is not a place of rehabilitation. As we have exposed on this channel before, it is a brutal academy for the underworld. It is a place where men are broken down and spat out worse than they went in. But inside those walls, Gayton did not break. He evolved. Behind the heavy steel doors, he met another inmate who would alter the trajectory of his entire existence, Kenny Kunene. Together, these two men looked around at the blood, the gangs, and the despair, and they made a quiet, calculated decision. They decided that when they walked out of those gates, they were going to conquer the outside world just as ruthlessly as the gangs conquered the inside, but they were going to do it legally. When Gayton was released, the reinvention began. He authored books that became instant bestsellers. He became a highly sought-after motivational speaker, standing in front of corporate executives and telling them how the mind of a criminal can be re-engineered for corporate dominance. He and Kenny launched ZAR, the most exclusive, opulent nightclub empire South Africa had ever seen. But the clubs were just the front window of the empire. Behind closed doors, Gayton was making massive moves in mining, logistics, and consulting. He was leveraging his undeniable charisma, his terrifying street credibility, and his razor-sharp intellect to sit at the table with mining magnates and international investors. He amassed a fortune that whispered in the billions. He bought the fleet of supercars. He built the mansions. He achieved the ultimate soft life. He proved that a man could walk out of Polsmoor and walk into the boardroom. But for a man whose ambition is a bottomless pit, financial wealth is never the final destination. Money can buy you comfort, but money cannot buy you the laws of the land. For that, you need political power. In 2013, Gayton McKenzie and Kenny Kunene disrupted the political landscape by launching the Patriotic Alliance. The political elites laughed. They called it a vanity project. They called it a party for gangsters. They assumed that a former bank robber and a former sushi king could never resonate with the voting public. They gravely underestimated the man. Gayton understood something fundamental about the South African working class that the traditional politicians had completely forgotten. He understood raw, unfiltered populism. He did not speak to the masses using the complicated, polished vocabulary of Parliament. He spoke to them in the language of the streets. He spoke directly to the colored communities who felt completely abandoned by both the African National Congress and the Democratic Alliance. He promised them borders, he promised them jobs, and he promised them pride. But Gayton's true genius was not just in gathering crowds, it was in mastering the political chessboard. He realized early on that you do not need 51% of the vote to hold 100% of the power. You just need to be the deciding vote. The Patriotic Alliance positioned itself as the ultimate kingmaker in South African politics. In municipalities across the country where no major party won an outright majority, Gayton held the golden key. If the DA wanted to rule, They had to come to Gayton. If the ANC wanted to rule, they had to kiss the ring. He used this leverage to install himself as the mayor of the Central Karoo District Municipality in 2022, where he promised to eradicate bucket toilets and fix the pools. He turned a small, forgotten municipality into a national media spectacle. He showed the country that he was a man of action. And then came the masterstroke. Following the watershed national elections, Gayton McKenzie played his cards perfectly and secured a seat in the government of national unity. The man who once robbed banks was sworn in as the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. The transformation was complete. The outcast was now the establishment. But Gayton knows that to stay at the top, you have to constantly feed the public narrative. You have to be seen not just as a leader, but as a savior. South Africa is a country deeply scarred by violence, but few cases have broken the heart of the nation, quite like the disappearance of 6-year-old Jocelyn Smith from her home in Saldanha Bay. It is a tragedy that exposed the darkest, most terrifying realities of human trafficking and child vulnerability. Her mother and several others were eventually convicted for kidnapping and child trafficking, but the little girl remained missing. The country demanded answers, and Gayton McKenzie stepped directly into the center of the storm. Immediately after being appointed as a cabinet minister, Gayton made one of the boldest, most headline-grabbing pledges in recent political history. He stood before the media and declared that he would not take a single cent of his massive ministerial salary. He pledged 100% of his government paycheck to a foundation he was establishing in the name of the missing schoolgirl. He told journalists, quote, 100% of my salary, not 80% or 50%. In March 2026, 2 years after her disappearance, he officially launched the Jocelyn Smith Foundation at the Dial Rock Community Center. He stated that nobody put a gun to his head to do this. He did it because he believed it was his absolute duty. He pledged that the foundation would support searches for missing children and assist destroyed families. He even announced that he had handed over brand new information to the acting police minister, Firoz Kachalia, linking several new suspects to the disappearance.
In cabinet, he's not going to sweep things under the carpet. At this point, I'm just willing to say that that information points to more people being involved in the Jocelyn Smith disappearance. And that's all I'm willing to say at this point.
For his supporters, this was the ultimate proof of his changed heart. What other politician gives away their entire salary? What other minister goes to the front lines to find a missing child? But for his critics, it was a brilliantly executed, highly manipulative populist stunt. Investigative journalists pointed out that establishing the legal framework for the charity took months, and political opponents questioned if the Patriotic Alliance was simply using the pain of a missing child to buy votes in the Western Cape. Is Gayton a billionaire with a bleeding heart, using his own wealth to fund his life while giving his government money to the vulnerable? Or is he a master of public relations, exploiting national trauma to cement his power? Whatever the truth is, the Jocelyn Smith crusade made Gayton McKenzie untouchable to the working class. But in politics, nobody stays untouchable forever. The past is a shadow that never stops hunting you. And in the early months of 2026, the shadow caught up. March 2026, the halls of Parliament are suddenly rocked by an explosive scandal. The ad hoc committee investigating claims linked to the South African Police Service is presented with a handwritten letter. The letter comes from a man named Jermaine Prim, a highly dangerous inmate locked deep inside a maximum security unit, and the contents of that letter are absolute dynamite. Jermaine Prim went on national television via an ENCA broadcast and accused the Minister of Sports of being heavily involved in the illicit drug trade. Prim alleged that he had secret voice recordings linking Gayton McKenzie to prominent drug dealers and illegal money. He alleged that drug money was actively being used to fund the rapid expansion of the Patriotic Alliance. Immediately, the political wolves smelled blood in the water. The Democratic Alliance, led by figures like J.P. Smith, unleashed a relentless assault. They wrote urgent letters to the South African Police Service, the Hawks, and the Independent Electoral Commission. They demanded full lifestyle audits on Gayton McKenzie and the top leadership of the PA. They pointed to the Patriotic Alliance's conspicuous displays of massive wealth and demanded to know exactly where the money was coming from. The DA argued that the evidence was damning, pointing to a leaked voice recording from a Johannesburg PA ward councillor that seemingly corroborated the drug money claims. But if you hit Gayton McKenzie, he does not flinch. He hits back harder. Gayton took to the airways and delivered a blistering, hour-long defense. He outright denied ever meeting Jermaine Prim.
I've never met Jermaine Prim. Never met him. I spoke to Jermaine Prim over the phone. It took me, I think, 6 to 8 months to figure out or be told by a guy called Jack Watson that this guy is in jail. And I confronted him.
He challenged the inmate to a live public lie detector test. He reminded the country of his immense, independently accumulated wealth, laughing at the idea that a billionaire would need to peddle drugs from a C-Max prison cell to fund a political party.
That Jermaine Prim, to give me money, Gayton McKenzie, taking money from a prisoner, knowing how hard he is in prison. Now, I don't want to mention this, but I do have businesses. My family have businesses. We probably have like 40 buses, my family. We have the biggest mining equipment you can get on our mines. One of our mines are turning 15 million rands a year.
He launched massive multi-million rand lawsuits against the Minister of Correctional Services, the journalists involved, and the news networks, calling the entire scandal a highly coordinated political hit job designed to destroy his rise to power. His deputy, Kenny Kunene, went on the parliamentary record and stated unequivocally that neither he nor Gayton touches drugs.
Me and drugs as the furthest thing from each other.
The 2026 drug allegations tore the country in half. Half of Mzansi believes this is a desperate, racist smear campaign orchestrated by the political establishment to destroy a black man who has beaten their system. They see a reformed billionaire who is donating his salary and fighting for missing children. The other half believes that a leopard never changes its spots. They look at the flashy cars, the aggressive tactics, and the criminal history, and they wonder if the Patriotic Alliance is simply the most successful organized syndicate in the history of the country, wearing political ties instead of prison tattoos,